This is another quick video on the tapes for the 9845B vintage computer that I'm restoring. I've posted quite a few videos on the tapes now, so if you're getting bored with them, feel free to skip this video. But I was asked a question in relation to one of the videos I'd posted recently on restoring the tapes. And it was quite a good question, so I thought I'd just post this brief video just to explain or give an answer to the question. Firstly, you'll notice I've just started processing another tape in the background there. You can see the heater slowly heating up. That'll give you some idea as to the rate of heating that I use. Now, firstly, before I get into this video, it's worth mentioning that I've said that you can use DC2000 tapes in place of the DC100s, but be warned, the DC2000s do suffer from similar problems to the DC100s. It's just not quite as common. So this particular belt is out of a DC2000, and you can see it's failed as well. And you do get failures of the DC2000 tapes, and in particular the biggest problem with them is the lubrication that's used on the two reels. So these two center pins, and what I do when I'm shortening the tapes is I take all the lubricant out and clean it with IPA, but I don't re-lubricate it, I leave it dry, and that does seem to cure most of the problems. Now, the question I was asked in relation to the previous video, I'd said that one of the biggest problems with the old DC100 tapes is their tendency for the tape to kind of grab onto these guide posts. There's normally two of these. You can see I've removed one of them. But normally the tape runs around these two posts, so one here and the other one normally goes there. But there are two different general designs of these posts. There's the ones that are supposed to rotate, and they, as long as they are rotating, that's what I showed in the video, tend not to cause a problem. Even if a tape has a tendency to try and grab on, it will try and grab, the post will rotate, and then the tape will continue turning. So they tend not to cause a problem until they seize up and stop turning. But unfortunately, the vast majority of these tapes use these fixed posts, so these do not rotate. And the question was what to do if you only have this type of tape available, because what I said in my video was I normally transfer the tape into a cartridge that has rotating posts because it's far less likely to damage the tape. And as I say, the question was, well, what do you do if you only have this type of cartridge? I did say in the video that they are quite easy to make, the rotating type of post. But what I actually do most of the time is modify this type of tape. If you leave them fixed, it's almost a guarantee that at some point in the very near future your tape will grab onto the post, and that's the end of the tape. It will destroy it. So it is well worth trying to do something to avoid that, but if this is the only type of cartridge that you have, there is still a fairly easy solution. And what I do is I modify them to make the posts rotate. So firstly, I drill out the post. The post will, you can just pull the post out, so if you just grip it firmly with a pair of pliers, just take this one out. This is what I'm working on at the moment, try and get this in shot. If you grab onto it, you need to be careful not to damage it, because if you scratch it then you can't use it, and if you just twist it a few times it will pull out. And notice it's got a little pin on the bottom that's used to secure it to the base plate. What you can do is effectively drill out the center of the post. So when you drill it out, you end up with something that looks like this. And what I then do is machine a pin. So I'll machine a small pin that looks like this. And of course you then assemble them so that they're like this. It actually goes all the way in. So it's like this. And the post will now spin freely on the pin. And of course the pin is the right size to fit into the base plate. So I drill it out with a 1.5mm carbide drill. I then open that up to 1.6mm, which is the diameter of the original pin that sticks out of the bottom of the post. And then I press it back into the base plate. So I'll just get this particular cassette reassembled and show you what it looks like once it's done. So once it's reassembled, it looks very much like it did originally. The difference now is that the pin will actually rotate. So I don't know how clear this is on the camera, but this now rotates nice and freely. I'll put a little bit of white paper on there, as you can see. But this now will spin around quite freely, and the other one of course is the same, so they both spin around without any resistance. There is no vertical movement, so basically you push the pin in. It's got to be a fairly tight fit in the base plate. Push the pin in until it's just starting to nip up on the post, and but it doesn't restrict it from turning. Make sure they're in straight, of course, and then it should rotate freely. And you've now made a rotating pin cartridge. So I'll get the tape refitted and we'll see how the finished item looks. So once the tape's reassembled, it looks like a standard tape, of course. The only difference now is if the tape tries to grab onto the pin will rotate and the tape will be able to free itself without damage. And the pin isn't meant to rotate all the time the tape is turning, it's just if the tape grabs. So as the tape is spinning, if it does try and grab onto the pin or the post, it will turn and the tape can free itself off without any damage, in the same way that the rotating pins in the factory made ones work. This repair, every time I've done this, I've never had a tape fail. Having said that, when I read original tapes, I tend not to keep using them. I'll copy them to a newer tape. But this is a very good way if you don't have any of the factory made rotating pin type. It's not an easy thing to make, it does take a bit of practice, and the rollers are stainless steel, so drilling them out you do need to go fairly slowly, and obviously use a center drill, and I use a collet to center them. They do need to be well centered or they won't rotate, but once you've got the basic method of doing this, it's fairly straightforward. It's a bit time consuming, but it's well worth it if you have a tape that you want to preserve. So that's just another method I thought I'd mention, and in the next video in this series we'll get on with some more repairs to the machine and start looking at archiving some actual data.